Chatting with Mr. Fred Tackett, part of Little Feat. They're going to be at the Harvester in Rocky Mount. The show is Monday, March 11th. Mr. Tackett, first off, thank you so much for joining us. I'll go ahead and call you a music legend. You can deflect or accept that compliment however you want, but you've certainly had a wonderful life in music, haven't you?
I have been very blessed to have had a great career that just sort of unfolded before me without me doing much about it except following the guide. When I see, go here, go there, I do. Paul and I wrote a song called "I Do What the Telephone Tells Me to Do." And it's pretty much the phone rings and someone says, "Can you come play guitar over here?" I go, "Yeah, all right." And I go do it.
Well, let's get to your session life, your former life in music a little bit later. Let's start with this year's current tour. You guys are back together. You're touring the countryside again. It's like old times, but you weren't sure a few years ago if this would ever happen again, right?
I guess, it's just we were touring all the time, and it was starting to get to where we were playing the same places on like a clockwork basis, and I never have ever thought that was a great idea. And then basically the situation was that Paul had some health issues and needed to get off the road and concentrate on his health, which he has been doing. He's been very successful at it, and so that's the way it worked. And he's been getting better and better. And so, never wanted to say, "Oh, the band is over," because it's not over. It's a band. We're all best friends, kind of, so that'll never be over. So it's like, let's get together and play some music and go out and play some shows and make some money and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're excited about it. And it's 50 years. It's hard to believe that. I can't believe it.
It is hard to believe when you think about it. And you guys all sound so good still. What's the secret there? Just taking care of yourself and working on your craft, all those things that you hear about?
Yeah, man, hanging out in California. I think that's what does a lot for us. No, I don't know. We've all had various successes at being healthful. Some of us all of us have had moments when we were not all that healthy. Lifestyles were not all that healthy, but we've all seemed to done very well. So far, so good. Knock on wood.
Take us back to the late 80s when the band decides to reform. You were sort of on the periphery there, hanging out with all these guys. In the 70s. You weren't an official member of Little Feat, but you were always sort of around from what I understand. Then what's the scene there in the late 80s when everybody says, "Hey, we need to bring Little Feat back and get out there and make albums and do tours"? Walk us through what happened there.
Well, to step back a second, yeah, you're right. I had been, like I said, we always have been a band of friends, and around the neighborhood. I've always said Los Angeles and Hollywood in particular is really a small town of people that, the people that work together, know each other, from the Little to Bonnie Raitt to the David Crosbys to all, people that you would see every day and hanging around on the street on Sunset Boulevard or whatever. So I was always friends with Lowell. I was friends with Lowell before Little Feat got started, and so I was always hanging out with everybody, even though I wasn't a member of their band. I was working for Jimmy Webb all that time, and the songwriter. So anyway, I would go in and like I said, I wrote "Fool Yourself" for the Dixie Chicken record, and I wrote "Be One Now" from the Down on the Farm, I believe. Anyway, it's the band has always let me come in and play an acoustic guitar here and play something. They're just out of friendship and being part of the scene, and it's kind of informal. When we lost Richie, we didn't want to go out and hire a famous drummer to play with us. We went out and got his drum tech who had been sitting next to him for 3 years, and he was a fine drummer, Gabe Ford. We said, "You play drums," because it's a family kind of operation, not like an international media sensation. We're like a bunch of Hollywood hippies, just stuck together.
It seems.
And as Brother Dave Gardner said, a diamond is just a piece of coal. Just stuck it out.
It seems to have worked out for you guys so far. We're talking to Fred Tackett. He and Little Feat are going to be at the Harvester Performance Center in Rocky Mount, March 11th. The tickets are available at harvester-music.com. Let's stay back in the earlier years there and talk about some of your session work, Fred. Let me just throw some names out here for fans. Boz Scaggs, Bonnie Raitt, Cher, Glenn Campbell, Rod Stewart. The list goes on. I could go on, but I'll just stop right there and ask you, what's that like playing on record records for all those people. When you're in the studio, do you just kind of pinch yourself sometimes and say, is this real?
Yeah, kind of. It's like I said, has been a very natural evolution. I worked for Cher because Jimmy Webb did an album. Did a album for Cher, and then she put me on. She asked me to play on the Cher show, and then on the Cher show, I got to meet all these incredible artists, all the way from Roy Rogers to David Bowie,
Right.
that would come in every week. And, I just, it's a word of mouth kind of thing around here in Los Angeles, and people would get to know you, and they would call up, and you get on the session. And usually once you get on the session, it gets kind of a normal thing because you're there to make music, and, with, the Boz Scaggs thing came about because I knew all the guys from Toto, before Toto, with David Page, when he was a youngster, he used to come hang out at our Jimmy Webb sessions all the time, and sort of sit in the back in the corner, and we knew his dad, Marty Page. And so when he started doing stuff, then David started calling me up and saying, come play guitar, So it's always been a kind of a cliquey thing, I guess you could call it, if a negative or a friendship kind of thing. But it's a small scene, and everybody knows each other, and that's how it all kind of works. And I think some of the more obscure ones, like playing behind Rodney Dangerfield on his back to school, "Shake It Up, Baby." That's one of them where I said, "Am I really in here?" Or one of the times that I was cut a version of Monster Mash with Christopher Lee, and I went, Jesus, this is crazy. I love it. This is Christopher Lee singing Monster Mash, and I'm right here next to him. So those were kind of put them in more like, my gosh, what's going down, than the Boz Scaggs, who was like a buddy,
Right.
People that and Bonnie Raitt. A lot of that came through Lowell. I worked for Bonnie because she I worked for Lowell, and she knew Lowell, and same with Jackson Brown. He heard me playing on the Bonnie Raitt sessions. He's working next door, and he's like, hey man, come on, play on my record next, So it's that kind of thing, And yeah, I'd say it is. It's what always impresses me the most was not the artist so much, was all the other musicians that I got to play with on those sessions that I would get to meet, and all of my fellow musicians, Jim Keltner, and Jimmy Gordon, and Hal Blaine, the famous drummer. Just all the musicians I've gotten to work with over the years. Larry Knechtel, the piano player, Mike Dacey, the guitar player, just fabulous musicians that I always felt honored to be able to sit next to and play with.
Oh, I can imagine that Southern California music scene is well documented, but it sounds like you've got your share of stories that are interesting and noteworthy. Are there any others that stand out? Again, I know that's tough because there's got to be a million, but anything in particular from those session days? You always hear these things about people will do a session and they think it doesn't go well, and then they flip on the radio and they hear the song and people talking about how great it is. Has there ever been a moment like that where you thought there was a dud and all of a sudden it became a big hit?
Probably. I didn't notice it as much as what I really did notice was a lot of times on sessions, especially on the Boz Scaggs Silk Degrees sessions, when we were doing that record, we would play those tracks and go and listen to them, and it was just like magic. Everybody knew this is gold, man. This is like this is going to be fantastic, and it was. It just was like there was nothing to it. I mean, Boz calls up and goes, "Hey man, we just went gold." "Hey man, we just went platinum." That kind of stuff. And when the first time we played the song, it just clicked so well that you knew it. But a lot of times you think something's going to be, really good. And usually when you go to a session, you have these incredible musicians. It always sounds good, so you think, yeah, this is really good, but you never know, But I don't remember anything where I really thought, this one really sucked, and then it became a big hit. I never really had that experience, but I had a lot of experiences where I said, this is dynamite. It was.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about Boz Scaggs and that album, Lido Shuffle alone, that's I think people are still buying that to this day and probably will for a long time.
And I'd say another one was Tom Waits.
Okay.
Working with Tom Waits was an incredible experience, and that record has become very, very well respected, and I just, I did the record, and I didn't think, well, whatever, this album in particular, not particularly the songs, but I thought, well, Tom Waits doesn't sell all that many records and all that, blah, blah. It was artistically fantastic, but I didn't expect it to be like a kind of a really classic or legendary record, which it really has turned out to be, Swordfish Trombones.
Yeah.
And it was just so much fun.
Again, a life in music for Mr. Fred Tackett. We're talking to him right now. He and Little Feat going to be at the Harvester in Rocky Mount, March 11th. Let's shift gears back to Little Feat. Talk about selling a lot of records here. You guys have been doing it, the live albums. Of course, the most famous live album, Waiting for Columbus, but you guys have created a lot in, Little Feat 2.0, I guess we'll call it. Is that another thing that comes natural, just getting up there and shredding with these guys and connecting on the songs on stage?
Yes, absolutely. I remember Lowell was always a huge fan of live records, and that's usually our seems to be our best thing. I mean, the spontaneity of the improvisation of it all, and the songs sound different every night. They sound the same but different, But there's something about the magic of live music, and we've fallen on it a lot of times, Our most successful stuff has always been our live stuff. Live at Neon Park with the Little Feat 2.0 was a real standout record. With Sean Murphy first joined the band. I listened to that record a lot. It's just great. Because in the studio, there's a whole different thing about making a record, like a pop record or a record. There's you don't have long guitar solos, and you don't have any of that stuff. Whereas when we play live, you got a lot of long guitar solos and a lot of keyboard solos. It's a different thing, and I think Little Feat is known for improvisation and musicianship. I always said Little Feat's like a jazz band that plays rock and roll.
Sure. Well, fans, if you haven't heard the album Fred mentioned, Neon Park, pick that up. The other good one is High Wire Act. I think you guys were in St. Louis for that. I mean, all the live albums are good. And you talk about a jazz band. Well, we're talking to a guy right now that plays some trumpet, and you play some mandolin and guitar all in the same show. Discuss that. Is that another one of the things that comes natural to you, or do you have to work at that a little bit? What's the process there?
I guess it's kind of a schizophrenic thing, man. When I was in high school, in college, I played trumpet, in the band, and I took trumpet. That was my main instrument since I was 5 years old. And as you were calling, I was playing long tones on my trumpet, working on my chops. It was extremely unforgiving instrument, like guitar, where you can might play a little bit and you can get it right back up. Trumpet, boy, you're just dead in the water. But I play that. I play like classical music on the trumpet, and then I would play jazz drums and trios in Little Rock, Arkansas, Jacksonville Air Force Base, officers clubs, all that stuff. I played like jazz, and then I got into a rock and roll band when Elvis came along. I was 12 years old. I was like, I got to get a guitar.
Right.
And my brother had a good friend who was a guitar player, Bill Dedman, who was an amazing guitar player. And anyway, I never mixed the two. I had people that I played drums with didn't know that I played guitar, and nobody really paid any attention to the fact that I was playing trumpet in the high school band and stuff. So anyway, I go off to college, and I have a scholarship to play drums in all the dance bands, jazz bands, and stuff like that, even though I was a trumpet major. But I was, basically had my scholarship for playing faculty parties and all that, whatever they wanted me to do. And I would go home in the summer and play in my rock and roll band. And none of my guys in college, none of my friends knew that I played rock and roll, and none of my rock and roll buddies knew that I played jazz with anybody. So I was in Oklahoma City in a show band with my mentor, a man named Joe Davis, who's an insanely great saxophone player and arranger and all that. And he came over to my apartment one day and saw my guitar lying there and goes, "What's up with the guitar?" And I said, "Well, I play this." And he goes, "Oh, okay, wait. You're going to play the Bossa Novas had just come out." And he was like, "You're going to play Bossa Nova on the guitar, and I'll play the drums, and then you'll play Shadow of Your Smile on your trumpet." And because I was a drummer in the band. So it was like one of those things where he started making me come up to the front and play a little feature number, and from then on, that was like, part of my bit. When Jimmy Webb found me playing in a club in Honolulu and brought me to L.A., I was playing, guitar and trumpet all the time.
That's something there. That I think most people don't know that about Fred Tackett as much. So neat that you get to incorporate it in the shows sometimes. Is it one of the things where the rest of the guys in the band have to beg you to play some trumpet and some mandolin? I mean, I know there's certain songs that you pick up the mandolin for. Or are they telling you to stop, put that down, and pick the guitar back up?
Yeah, no, there's never has been any. With anybody in the band, what they want to do. We just do what we're going to do. I mean, if I decide I want to play trumpet on something, I'll just say, let me play a trumpet solo. They'll say, okay, do it. And if I want to play mandolin on something, I think I'll try mandolin on something. Or sometimes it'll be like when Billy wrote Rooster Rag, he said, I think you should play mandolin on this, things like that. But, no, there's never any, would you do this or that or anything. Except, like when he wrote the tune, he'd say, I think the mandolin would sound good. But if I said, hey, I want to play the guitar, he would have said, okay, try the guitar. But anyway, that's the way that works. It's really loose. Right now we're debating, we're going to do a new version of, we're going to start playing, we haven't played in a while, of Rock and Roll Doctor.
Okay.
And when Paul and I do our acoustic show with just Paul and Fred, we do it with mandolin and guitar. And we were playing it the other day. We had a show with the Funky Feet, which is just two guitars, bass, and drums without Billy or Sam, because Billy was off with the Doobie Brothers, and we call that the Funky Feet. So anyway, we were doing that, and we went over, in sound check, we went over it, and I played on mandolin, and Paul's going, maybe you should play mandolin when we do it with Little Feat, which I've always played on guitar. So, we'll see. We'll try it both ways and see what everyone seems to feel comfortable in.
I guess maybe folks that aren't up there can't imagine that you would just kind of be loose and that kind of thing. But it sounds like, as you've pointed out a couple times already in the interview, it just comes natural. It sounds like if you guys tried to script it, that's when you might mess up a little bit more.
More than likely, yeah, I think so. We would just be getting in our own way. Usually, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, my band directors and people would all tell me, you need to concentrate on one instrument and don't do that. And a friend of mine who's a very famous studio guitar player got out of the Army because he plays an incredibly good saxophone player. And he said he always told his psychiatrist that he always felt guilty when he practiced saxophone, that he wasn't practicing guitar, and that he always felt guilty when he was practicing the guitar and he wasn't playing saxophone. And the guy said, that's what's going to get you out of the Army. And it did. So,
Hilarious. I can't afford a psychiatrist. I just listen to Little Feat records. That seems to work just as well. We're talking with Fred Tackett, main man on guitar. Of course, you've got Paul Berear on the guitar as well with Little Feat.
Yeah, you do.
Just real quick, we hate to keep you all day, Fred, but tell us a little bit more about Paul and just that connection you and he have on the guitar and life and music. You make an incredible pair up there, and then when you go do the Fred and Paul thing on your own sometimes.
I met Paul, when he joined the band Little Feat. Like I said, I was friends with Lowell before the first incarnation. So Lowell was looking for a rhythm guitar player, and he brought Paul in, who was in a band called the Lead Enema in Laurel Canyon in Hollywood. And they were going to have a record called Hot Feet from the Lead Enema, and that's how he ended up in the band. And from that time on, that was about the time that we did Fool Yourself, and so that's when I met Paul and got to play along with him. And then, we were friends, and we'd see each other along the way. We'd hang out at nightclubs and, party down together a lot. And then when I joined the band, we started going out and playing radio show, to hype the show. We would go bring a couple of guitars or guitar and mandolin to a radio station, which is easier than trying to bring sets of drums and keyboards. So we brought a couple of guitars, and it became up to Paul and I to go to the station and play a couple of tunes, and we started doing that, and that just naturally led into us playing at the NAMM show. And for Gibson, we had an endorsement deal with Gibson. Then this guy from Japan called us up. And so we to go to Japan and do a duet tour, and that's how we started doing the Paul and Fred thing. And anyway, it's just that we played together so many years, sometimes in different parts of the building when you're in a recording session. And we can play together on stage and not hear each other and then hear a tape back, and it's just, there's an instinctiveness an intuitiveness that comes between the two of us. I kind of have a feeling about what he might play and probably what he is playing. Most of the time I can't hear him, and I can't hear what he's playing, but we have two different styles, and they just seem to fit together. He plays one way, and I play another way, and they just kind of fit together into one seamless kind of strange guitar sound. I tend to play more quieter, I mean, with more of a cleaner sound.
Right.
And he plays he plays a lot of slide.
Sure.
And he plays with a little dirtier sound than I do, more with a little more effect. And so the two of them together, kind of mellow each other out. He makes my parts more exciting, and I make his parts a little mellower, I guess. It all like melds together.
Sounds like the perfect combination to me.
It is. It works out really well, man.
Little Feat's going to be at the Harvester in Rocky Mount, Virginia, Monday, March 11th. We're talking with Fred Tackett. All right, Fred, we've been doing this for a while here, but let's run one or two more things by you. You mentioned Rooster Rag.
Man.
That was your most recent studio album. I think I heard Bill Payne giving an interview where he said we wanted to make a blues album, then we got in the studio and we had no blues songs, so we just had to sort of wing it, and we turned it into a Little Feat album. Is that fairly accurate on how that record was made?
Yeah. Billy's always wanting to make a blues record, and I always say we are making a blues record. That's what we do when we do what we do. But it always, like he said, it always turns out to be a Little Feat record, not I don't know. I think maybe if we put out an album of Broadway show tunes and did Hello Dolly, it would still come out like funky Little Feat.
The album sounds great. The one before that was pretty interesting too, called Join the Band, where you had a bunch of other music legends get together and do some Little Feat songs. Dave Matthews, Jimmy Buffett, Bob Seger. The list there goes on too. How cool was that? Because I know a lot of times with these albums, people call and they ask all these icons, and they say yeah, but then something comes up, or you got to call them a dozen times and it doesn't work out. But in this case, it sounds like just about everybody you guys called and invited to be on said yes, and they got it done, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, we have history with Bob Seger. Billy and I both played with Bob Seger's band over the years, so he's always been a friend. And the same with Jimmy Buffett, who basically put this thing together. We recorded it down in Key West at his studio, and he was on it. So yeah, it came together real naturally. Most of the people, Dave Matthews was always, has always professed to be a fan and plays Dixie Chicken a lot, I think. And so it was all people who were already fans of the band, and the only people I really didn't know was the Brooks and Dunn's guy who did Willin', I guess. But that's pretty, if you're going to have a country tune, that's a pretty good country tune.
Sure.
Most of the people were like friends of ours. So again, it was like one of those kind of family hours. You guys want to come down and sing a song with us, and blah, 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 this and that.
Great when that works out. Hey, it's worked out for 50 years for you guys, the anniversary tour. I usually ask people at the end of these interviews, what comes next? You're going to do the 50th anniversary tour. Can we expect more, or maybe slowing down a little bit, or perhaps there's still a question mark there?
There's still a question mark. I mean, we'll just do what comes naturally, as little Abner's always just said. Doing what comes naturally, we'll feel like we want to do. It depends on how everybody's health is, and everybody's willing to get on a bus and ride around.
Yeah.
It's the travel part that's such a drag.
Yeah.
We used to go out every year between Christmas and New Year's, and it was always just, the weather's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And so, now we don't get anywhere near the East Coast, where the majority of our fans are in the wintertime. It's not going to go, it's just way too horrible to go through it. You miss shows, you get, blizzards, and you have to drive at night because the crew has to be there next morning, so you're driving all night in the middle of blizzards. That's tough. It's just like we were like, no, I'm done with that. I don't think there's going to be any more like 3-month tours or any kind of big world things like that. We just go out and play a week here and play a week there, do some shows here, do some shows there, break it up a little bit. Right now it's kind of seasonal. We kind of do something in the summer. We can 10 days in the winter time. We go to Jamaica in the winter with the band, and that's what we're going to do at the end of March. As soon as the March tour is over, the 50th thing, we will just go right down to Jamaica and hang out there with Lucinda Williams is going to be with us this year, as well as Larry Campbell and Teresa Williams and all the Levon Helm band guys that we hang with, our buddies from Woodstock. So that's what happened. And, in the springtime we'll do a little, week here. In the summer, autumn, little September tour, October tour. It's usually seasonal, something that lasts about a week or so, or week and some days. I don't think 2 weeks is stretching it.
and despite
2
all
weeks is getting more like work.
Sure, yeah. Despite the hard work and the rigorous travel, I've noticed you couldn't talk your son out of a musical career, huh?
No, I didn't try to talk him out of a musical career. He's always done exactly what he wants to do. He's an amazing guy, Myles is, man. Amazing guitar player. He's got a trio that nobody really hears, and that's just insane. And then he has this funk band called Breakestra where he plays bass and sings, and that's badass. But he makes all of his money running this nightclub they call the Root down in Los Angeles, where he's a DJ, plays funky soul music. It's called the Funky Soul, and it's probably what always makes the top 10 things to do in L.A. any day. Lines around the block, all that kind of stuff. So, he's been coming down to Jamaica with us and spinning records and sitting in with the band, too, every year.
That's fabulous. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Fred, this has really been a blast for me. I appreciate you taking the time. I hope folks will come out and see you Monday, March 11th at the Harvester.
I do too.
And remind everybody the website if they want more information and maybe they want to get down there to Jamaica with you. That's just an open party, right? Anybody can show up.
Anybody can come down there. I mean, right this year is sold out, but there's always next year.
There's next year, right.
Littlefeet.net.
.net, okay.
I think somebody owned littlefeet.com and we wouldn't buy it from them.
Well,
maybe we got littlefeet.com, but I always see littlefeet.net. But you just put in Little Feet, you'll find us.
Excellent stuff. Fred, thank you for taking the time. I hope this little mini tour goes well. I know you guys are going to have fun in Jamaica, and we look forward to many more good shows on the horizon.
Well, thank you very much, Kyle. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for taking so much time.